Okay, time to go. Let's go diving.
Hello YouTube land, welcome back to The Diving Developer. We're going to be going on a dive today to a special place called the Burroo, which is a unique dive site on the south of the island, just off the Isle of Man. It's abundant with life. Now the boat leaves in about 10 minutes, which doesn't give me a heck of a lot of time to get ready. Here I am just quickly lubing up the seals for my dry gloves. This makes the hard outer rubber glove much easier to pop on and off when I'm actually wearing the suit. Now dry suit divers need to wear something underneath the dry suit to keep warm. The dry suit itself we use for buoyancy and to keep the water out, but underneath we wear a variety of thermal clothing. I've got a compact all-in-one thermal suit here by a company called Weasel. I'm also wearing thermal socks, and I'll also be wearing some thermal gloves underneath my dry gloves. And as I plan to be quite still on this dive, taking lots of pictures, I'm also wearing a heated vest by Thermolution. If you look at my feet here, you can see I'm actually just putting on what we call rock boots, but in reality they're just sort of like normal boots, but without any insulation or padding. This allows me to clamber over rocks and not puncture my suit. Once I've gotten myself ready and I've got all of the various bits of kit like my fins and my mask and camera and so on in my dive bag for the boat, I have to pick up my actual diving rig. This is what I'll be using today. It's my twin set, which is a custom made harness fitted to a steel back plate, which is bolted onto a couple of cylinders that sit on my back really quite nice and snugly. The worst part about cold water diving has to be all of the heavy kit that you have to carry to the boat or the shore. It's not a lot of fun, but you know, it's the plain pleasure balance, isn't it? No gain without pain, right? So down these sometimes slippery harbour stairs with sometimes as much as 30 kilos on your back. Once we get onto the boat and everybody is present, we can leave. Now these little bungee strings you see me faffing around with here, what I'm trying to do with that is break the seal that goes around my wrist, which prevents my suit from flooding. The reason I want to break that seal is because when I put on my thick heavy rubber glove that goes on the outside, my dry gloves, I need to be able to equalize the pressure between my hands and the rest of my body. On with the next seal, then I close the big heavy brass waterproof zip. Finally, I break the next seal and bend down, and what I'm doing here is pushing all of the air out of my suit, because when I jump into the sea, I don't want any excess air in my suit holding me up. I put my dive computer on my right wrist. This is a Sunto Eon Steel Black. And on my left, I put a compass, an analog compass. Do you see that valve on my left shoulder? That's a dump valve. Now, dry suit divers use that to control the amount of air that's in the suit by dumping it off. So I want to be able to look at my computer on my right wrist while dumping at the same time. Next up are my dry glove inner liners. This is the Fourth Element Zero Therm liner. They make fantastic dog walking gloves, by the way, really comfortable and stretchy. This just keeps me warm. On top of my thermal layer goes the dry glove itself. Now, I'm relatively new to dry glove diving, having only been diving with dry gloves for 4 or 5 months now. They are a bit faffy, but they do keep my fingers really warm, much warmer than the thinner neoprene gloves that I used to wear. It's time to do our buddy safety checks, and my buddy and I prepare to jump into the water and go about our dive. The last thing I do on the surface before jumping in is make sure my mask is on and my regulator, which provides me with safe, clean breathing air. On this dive I'm breathing nitrox, which is a higher proportion of oxygen in the mix. That makes the gas safer, but we can get onto that in another video if you guys are interested. Here we go. If you like this content, please hit the like button. It's a great way to tell YouTube that I'm doing a reasonably good job making videos. Thank you. The first few meters near the surface are always the most tricky, as the pressure gradient is actually the greatest here. So what I'm doing is breathing out, trying to get nice and comfortable in the water, venting all the air from my suit and my BCD, and just squaring myself away, making sure I'm facing my buddy, exchanging signals, doing all that sort of stuff. So it looks serene, but actually with a diver, there's an awful lot going on at this point in the dive. We haven't yet reached the bottom and we're enveloped by a massive shoal of pollock. This is amazing for me. This is quite actually a rare sight on the Isle of Man to see big shoals of fish on a dive. So it's a real privilege and it kind of was an indicator of how things were going to go. So now my buddy and I, both of us wielding cameras, are getting squared away. Now if you've ever used a camera on land, using a camera underwater is very similar, but a heck of a lot more complicated. I'm just trying to grab some photos here of that shoal of pollock. So not only are you working in 3 dimensions, but you need to get your buoyancy just bang on before you start using a camera underwater. My subject's backlit and I'm using all the wrong settings, but you know, that's proof there's fish. What looks like seaweed along most of this seabed is actually hydroids. They're a stinging kind of animal. Talking of life, check out this sea urchin. It's an echinoderm, just like a starfish. Yeah, just crossing the frame now, if you can see it in the middle there, that is a ballan wrasse. Hey little guy. Let's get a picture. These initial photos are not exactly National Geographic, but bear with me, they will get better. You get a little bit of time on your dive to just adjust your camera settings between shots. I realise my camera's having trouble focusing, so I'm going to use a dive light, as you can see here. I do a little okay to my buddy with the light, which is absolutely fantastic. They're great for signalling at a distance and also pointing out what I'm looking at here, which is a crab. Let's take a close look at some of the fuzzy stuff on the ground. These are hydroids. These hydroids thrive in areas of strong water movement and they form really dense bunches, or what we sometimes call a turf or an animal turf. It's a really weird way to think about it. On land, you look at that and think it's a plant, obviously, but not so underwater. Okay, now this is cool. This is a nudibranch. Nudibranchs are sea slugs that have stinging cells on the metacysts on their back. They eat hydroids and migrate the stinging cells to their backs. Incredible, alien-like creatures. Here's my dive buddy, Dr. Lara Howe. She's a marine biologist and I'm really glad she's with me. It's quite handy to have a marine biologist as a buddy. Amongst the hydroids and dead men's fingers, which are our soft corals, are these beautiful jewel anemones. They come in a variety of colours, from sort of pink, yellows and blues to purples. And you can see that as it's slack water, most of these have stopped feeding and the tentacles are kind of sucked in. But when the water's flowing a little bit, they stick out these clubby, very pretty tentacles. There's also some elephant hide sponge here. If you look carefully, you can see a tompock blenny poking his head out of his home. I just love this site. Everywhere you look, there's something of interest. Now, just this one photograph has got so much going on. We've got a nice elegant anemone in the left. Again, a nudibranch in the middle. We've got sponges and corals, sea squirts, hydroids, and seaweeds. These mushroom-like structures are also anemones. They're plumose anemones. They're our tallest anemone. The most common form is all white, like on the left, but we also get them in orange, like you can see on the right. Here's some of the Isle of Man's most common corals. It's a soft coral called dead men's fingers. When it appears fuzzy like this one here in the middle, it's because those little polyps are feeding in the passing current. And when it appears smooth, it's because they're not. Just passing a really big piece of elephant hide sponge there as we just move around this rock. See what's on the other side. See that crab down there? Oh dear, it's bereft of life. After finishing up looking for squishies, we start to make some progress along this wall, which is full of these plumose anemones. It's around here that my buddy taps me and starts pointing out over my shoulder that there's something. I'm thinking, what's she trying to point out? What's going on? I check my equipment, everything's fine. And then I see it out of the corner of my eye. It's a seal. It's a particularly inquisitive and very large female grey seal. This seal was so inquisitive, she followed us around for about 20 minutes. She's nibbling at our fins and swimming around, showing us what she can do in the water. We continue exploring the area and come across something really, really unwelcome. You see, just in the background here, you can see an absolute load of abandoned fishing gear. As a scuba diver, I often come across discarded lobster pots, tangled ropes, and forgotten nets beneath the waves. These seemingly harmless objects turn into silent killers, which ensnare marine life and cause what's known as ghost fishing. This term refers to the continuous, indiscriminate trapping and killing of fish and crustaceans and other marine animals long after the gear's been abandoned. Not only does ghost fishing pose a threat to the marine ecosystem, but it also contributes to the loss of biodiversity and negatively affects local fisheries. Ropes have been known to tangle around propellers on boats and ensnare divers as well. Oh, we've been down in the murky depths for quite some time now, about an hour. It's time to return back to the surface. On our way, we cruise the wall, grab a couple more pictures, including this cheeky little fella, and then we board the boat. This is the time in the video where I will ask you to subscribe and like and comment and share with your friends and so on, but actually I think after the ghost fishing segment, I think it's probably worth you, if you're really feeling like you want to do something about it, writing to your local politician. This is a worldwide problem, with a worldwide solution is needed. We really do need to get a grip of this sort of thing. Nobody wants this crap in the ocean, so, you know, if we can do something about it, let's all try and do something about it. Thank you again for watching. Welcome back to the Diving Developer if you've been here before. If you haven't, yeah, do the subscribe thing. And I'll see you guys all in the next video.